Do you think you truly know the story behind John F. Kennedy, the iconic 35th President of the United States? Today, we are diving into a side of JFK that few have dared to talk about, a side that only a handful of people close to him ever witnessed. And now, Judith EXNERHid herself has finally spoken out, revealing secrets that have been hidden for decades, shocking historians, fans, and political enthusiasts alike. Before we go further, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Every like and subscription tells YouTube to share this story with more people curious about history's hidden truths. If you want to support the channel even more, consider using the Super Thanks feature to help us create more in-depth videos like this one. And if you cannot, just leave a comment about which part of JFK's story surprised you the most or which secret you want us to explore in future videos. Stay with us until the end because the revelations in this video will completely change how you perceive John F. Kennedy and the events surrounding his presidency. Judith EXNERHid's relationship with JFK is one of the most controversial and intriguing stories in modern American history. Many have speculated about her role, her motives, and the depth of her involvement with the president, but few have ever had her first-hand account. Now, decades after these events, she has broken the silence. EXNERHid reveals details that were previously unknown, shedding light on JFK not just as a politician, but as a man who navigated immense power, temptation, and secrecy. Her revelations go far beyond a mere love affair. They expose a hidden world of influence, political maneuvering, and personal vulnerabilities that history books never fully captured. From the very beginning of her relationship with JFK, Judith EXNERHid found herself in a whirlwind of privilege, secrecy, and danger. Meeting a president at the height of his influence was both thrilling and terrifying. EXNERHid recounts the first encounters as deeply emotional and complicated, filled with moments of tenderness, but also an overwhelming awareness of the stakes involved. She knew that every detail, every meeting, could have lasting consequences not only for herself, but for those around her. Over time, the relationship became more complex, with EXNERHid forced to navigate her feelings alongside the pressures of living in the shadows of political power. The world outside had no idea what was happening behind closed doors. While JFK appeared charming, confident, and untouchable to the public, his private life was a labyrinth of hidden interactions, secret meetings, and careful negotiations. EXNERHid describes how she had to maintain absolute discretion, constantly aware that any mistake could have national implications. The secrecy surrounding the relationship was not just about avoiding scandal. It was also about the web of political connections, intelligence operations, and influential figures that JFK was constantly managing. Every action had to be weighed, measured, and controlled, and EXNERHid quickly realized that she was part of a world far larger and more complex than she had ever imagined. What makes EXNERHid's revelations particularly shocking is the depth of detail she provides about JFK's personality behind closed doors. The man who captivated the nation with charisma and confidence was also vulnerable, fearful, and sometimes conflicted. She recounts moments when JFK's private insecurities surfaced, revealing a man struggling with immense responsibility and the pressures of leadership. These are not the moments history often tells us about. They're intimate glimpses into the emotional and psychological challenges faced by one of the most famous leaders in the world. EXNERHid's honesty provides context for understanding JFK not just as a political icon, but as a deeply human figure, grappling with the weight of expectations, temptation, and secrecy. The intersection of personal and political in JFK's life created a constant tension. EXNERHid's story exposes how the president's private decisions sometimes had far-reaching consequences, influencing policy, political alliances, and public perception. She shares accounts of late-night meetings, coded communications, and situations where the line between personal desire and political necessity blurred. These revelations illustrate a side of JFK rarely seen, showing the delicate balance he had to maintain between love, loyalty, ambition, and duty. EXNERHid emphasizes that understanding these hidden dynamics is essential to fully appreciating the pressures and complexities of his presidency. And yet, despite the secrecy, the stakes were never purely political. EXNERHid recounts the personal toll of being involved with such a powerful figure, the constant need for discretion, the fear of exposure, and the emotional turbulence of the relationship took a significant psychological and emotional toll. She describes moments of fear, doubt, and confusion, highlighting the human cost of living in the shadow of power. These personal insights bring a fresh perspective to JFK's life, reminding us that historical figures, no matter how iconic, are also human beings who experience vulnerability, love, and fear just like anyone else. In this first block, we have only begun to scratch the surface of what Judith EXNERHid has revealed. Her story provides context, emotion, and nuance, painting a picture of JFK that goes far beyond the public image of charm, intelligence, and charisma. The upcoming blocks will delve deeper into political intrigues, hidden secrets, and personal revelations that will completely transform how you view this iconic figure. Make sure to stay until the end. Hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and consider supporting us with a super thanks so that we can continue to uncover the stories that history tried to hide. You won't want to miss what comes next. The revelations only grow more shocking from here. As we continue uncovering Judith EXNERHid's revelations, the story takes a turn into the complexities of power, secrecy, and influence that few outside the inner circle ever witnessed. EXNERHid explains that her involvement with JFK was not simply a romantic affair. It was entangled with politics, lobbying, and even connections of figures who influenced both domestic and international decisions. The stakes were enormous, and every action required careful consideration. EXNERHid recalls moments where she had to mediate between her own emotions and the political realities surrounding the president, aware that even a single misstep could have ripple effects across Washington. The intensity of secrecy in JFK's world is perhaps one of the most shocking aspects EXNERHid shares. Every meeting, every conversation was shrouded in confidentiality. EXNERHid recounts how phone calls were monitored, letters were carefully guarded, and encounters were meticulously planned to avoid any exposure. This level of control was not merely for appearances. It was necessary to protect political strategies, ongoing negotiations, and personal reputations. EXNERHid describes a constant awareness she had to maintain, the subtle cues she had to interpret, and the never-ending pressure to be perfect, discreet, and dependable in the eyes of the most powerful man in the world. EXNERHid's story also reveals a tension between JFK's public persona and private desires. The president, adored and scrutinized by millions, was constantly performing a role for the world, but in private he expressed fears, doubts, and desires that he could not share with anyone else. EXNERHid describes intimate conversations where JFK revealed insecurities about his legacy, his health, and the burden of leadership. These moments were profoundly human, showing that the man behind the myth was aware of the immense weight on his shoulders. EXNERHid's account provides an unprecedented look at how a leader navigates the conflict between duty and personal longing, a side of JFK that is rarely documented in history books. The entanglement of EXNERHid in JFK's world extended beyond emotional intimacy. She became a witness to the complex web of political influence, including relationships with high-profile figures, intelligence operations, and strategies that were never made public. EXNERHid recounts situations where she realized that even a casual conversation could have consequences, where political and personal boundaries were intertwined in ways that demanded constant vigilance. Her perspective reveals that being close to JFK meant more than love. It meant understanding the mechanisms of power, secrecy, and influence that shaped an era. At the same time, the personal risks were immense. EXNERHid describes the fear of exposure, the stress of maintaining discretion, and the emotional toll of constantly balancing her own life with the expectations and demands of the president. She details the moments of anxiety, isolation, and doubt that accompanied her every interaction. The psychological burden of being involved with a man whose life was under national and international scrutiny cannot be overstated. EXNERHid's account humanizes her experience, showing that history is not just shaped by leaders, but by those around them who bear the hidden cost of proximity to power. JFK's charisma, charm, and intellect were legendary, but EXNERHid's revelations paint a fuller picture of the pressures that shaped his decisions and behavior. She recounts situations where he was caught between political necessity and personal desire, decisions that affected not only his relationships but also policy and public perception. These accounts reveal the complexity of balancing personal life with the extraordinary demands of leadership. EXNERHid emphasizes that understanding this duality is key to comprehending both the man and the myth, highlighting the challenges that even the most celebrated figures face behind closed doors. EXNERHid also provides insight into the intricate dynamics of secrecy that surrounded JFK. She recalls how colleagues, aides, and advisors operated in a carefully choreographed system of trust and discretion. Each person played a role in maintaining the delicate balance between transparency and concealment, with Exner herself being a critical component of this hidden ecosystem. Her perspective illuminates the tension between personal freedom and political obligation, showing how even intimate relationships were regulated by the imperatives of power. Throughout her account, Exner conveys the emotional and moral dilemmas she faced. Being involved with President required constant self-reflection, negotiation, and compromise. She was frequently caught between her own values, her emotional needs, and the expectations of the man she was with. Exner explains that every decision carried weight, not just for her, but for JFK, his advisors, and the broader political landscape. This unique insight highlights the profound interconnectedness of personal relationships and political influence, a perspective rarely acknowledged in historical narratives. The story grows even more astonishing when Exner describes the consequences of these secrets. Maintaining absolute discretion was essential, and the stakes were high. She details moments where exposure would have caused scandal, disrupted policy, or even endangered individuals involved. The pressure to protect JFK's image, ensure political stability, and preserve personal safety created a constant state of vigilance. Exner's perspective underscores the incredible resilience required to navigate this world, where a single misstep could have far-reaching implications. Finally, as we close the second block, it is clear that Judith EXNERHid's revelations are not just about relationship. They are about power, secrecy, and the human cost of living close to one of the most influential leaders in modern history. Her account adds depth, context, and emotion to the public understanding of JFK, showing that historical figures are far more complex than their public personas suggest. In the next block, we will explore even deeper secrets, including political maneuvering, hidden interactions, and the shocking final truths that Exner has bravely shared. As we dive deeper into Judith EXNERHid's revelations, the story moves into territories even more shocking and revealing. Exner begins by recounting the clandestine pressures that surrounded her involvement with JFK, pressures that were not only personal but also political. Being close to the President of the United States meant that every interaction, every word spoken, every action taken had consequences that extended far beyond the personal realm. Exner describes how she had to constantly weigh the emotional desires of her own heart against the immense stakes of political power, an experience that would have overwhelmed anyone unprepared for the intensity of such secrecy. Exner recalls the delicate balancing act required to maintain discretion while still being emotionally present. There were days when JFK confided in her his fears about public perception, his anxieties over pending legislation, and his doubts about international conflicts. These were moments of vulnerability, rare glimpses into the psyche of a man whose life seemed untouchable to the public eye. Exner realized that her role was not simply as a partner, but as a confidant, a keeper of secrets whose knowledge could influence perceptions and outcomes if ever revealed. The stakes of secrecy became even more evident as Exner describes encounters involving high-profile individuals from political, intelligence, and social spheres. She recalls instances where seemingly casual conversations required careful navigation, where every gesture and response would be interpreted as political messaging. Even within the intimate moments, the awareness that she was participating in a network of influence weighed heavily on her. The lines between personal choice and political necessity blurred, creating an environment where autonomy was limited and the consequences of misjudgment were extreme. Exner's narrative also exposes the extent of control and orchestration required in JFK's world. Meetings, encounters, and public appearances were meticulously planned to avoid scandal or misinterpretation. She recounts being advised on how to conduct herself, how to respond to questions, and even how to present herself physically to maintain discretion. The constant awareness of observation by aides, security personnel, and the media created a unique psychological strain. Exner had to maintain composure, intelligence, and sensitivity at all times, understanding that misstep could have ripple effects far beyond her immediate comprehension. Perhaps the most startling revelation is how these pressures affected her emotionally. Exner describes a profound sense of isolation, the weight of carrying secrets that could never be shared openly, and the anxiety of understanding the potential ramifications of any disclosure. She reflects on the inner conflict of maintaining personal integrity while participating in a web of secrecy that demanded compliance. This emotional landscape was fraught with tension as she constantly navigated the duality of love, loyalty, and survival within a sphere of unparalleled influence. Exner also sheds light on JFK's vulnerabilities, painting a picture of a man who, despite immense power, was acutely human in his fears, insecurities, and desires. She recalls moments where he expressed frustration with political constraints, concern for his family, and doubts about his legacy. These candid confessions reveal the dissonance between the public figure admired worldwide and the private individual struggling under the weight of expectation and scrutiny. Exner emphasizes that these insights are critical to understanding JFK not as an untouchable icon, but as a human being shaped by circumstance, ambition, and the complexities of leadership. In addition to the personal revelations, Exner details encounters that highlight the intersection of politics and influence. She witnessed negotiations, subtle manipulations, and conversations that shaped decisions behind closed doors. The sheer scope of the network she encountered, advisors, lobbyists, political allies, and even intelligence operatives, revealed a system that was highly controlled, meticulously planned, and designed to safeguard a presidency while managing optics and outcomes. Exner's proximity allowed her to see the consequences of decisions that were invisible to the public, and she provides perspective that adds depth to our understanding of historical events. Exner also recounts a profound moral dilemma she faced. Being intimately involved with a figure of such authority required constant ethical reflection. Every choice carried the weight of personal consequence and broader societal implications. She described the struggle to maintain authenticity while fulfilling a role that demanded discretion and silence, a role that often forced her to subordinate personal needs to political expediency. This constant negotiation between self-preservation and loyalty created a psychological burden that few could comprehend. The narrative reaches its climax as Exner details moments of near exposure, instances where the carefully maintained balance was threatened, and the fear that even the smallest misstep could lead to scandal. She recalls the meticulous planning required to avoid detection, the strategies employed to maintain secrecy, and the emotional toll of living under such scrutiny. These experiences underscore the hidden cost of proximity to power, revealing that history is shaped not only by those in office, but also by those who navigate the shadows beside them. Exner's story culminates in reflections on the personal impact of these experiences. She describes the long-term effects on her emotional well-being, her sense of identity, and her understanding of the intersection between love, loyalty, and secrecy. The revelations provide a nuanced view of history, showing that human relationships, even at the highest levels, are deeply affected by power, expectation, and the invisible rules that govern behavior. Through her courage in sharing these truths, Exner offers a rare window into the complexities of life alongside one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century. As this block closes, it becomes clear that Judith EXNERHid's revelations are not simply about an affair. They are about the intricate dynamics of power, secrecy, and human emotion. The narrative she provides challenges conventional understanding, offering insights that are as shocking as they are enlightening. In the next block, we will conclude this extraordinary account, revealing the final truths, the consequences that shape both JFK and EXNERHid, and the ultimate lessons that history has rarely acknowledged. As we arrive at the final chapter of Judith EXNERHid's extraordinary revelations, the story reaches its most intense and revealing moments. EXNERHid begins by recounting the culmination of her experiences with JFK, reflecting on the long-term consequences of living in the shadows of one of history's most powerful men. These were years filled with tension, secrecy, and the constant awareness that her every word and action could influence perceptions, public narratives, and even historical interpretations. The gravity of her involvement went far beyond what most could imagine, and the emotional weight she carried shaped her life in ways that are only now fully understood. EXNERHid emphasizes that understanding the truth about JFK requires recognizing the duality of his existence, a public icon admired worldwide, and a private man who navigated complex personal relationships, political pressures, and ethical dilemmas. She describes moments when she witnesses humanity most vividly, fleeting instances of vulnerability, candid conversations about moral responsibility, and the private anxieties of a man burdened with immense power. These glimpses reveal that the man who inspired public fascination was simultaneously grappling with internal conflict, uncertainty, and the harsh demands of office. Throughout her account, Exner details the emotional strain of maintaining secrecy. She recalls the night spent in careful contemplation, weighing whether to disclose information or continue protecting the reputations of those involved. The constant vigilance required to prevent exposure was mentally exhausting and deeply isolating. She shares personal anecdotes of moments when she nearly confided in friends or family, only to halt herself, fully aware that the repercussions could be catastrophic. This aspect of her story underscores a profound psychological toll exacted by proximity to power and the intricate balance between personal ethics and self-preservation. Exner's narrative also explores the complex political environment surrounding JFK, revealing a web of influence, strategy, and calculated decisions. She witnessed interactions with key political figures, advisors, and members of the intelligence community, gaining insight into the mechanisms that shape policy and public perception. Even seemingly casual encounters were laden with significance, each word potentially influencing outcomes in ways invisible to the average observer. Through her perspective, the audience gains a deeper understanding of the interplay between personal relationships and political strategy, illustrating how intimate knowledge can intersect with national history in profound ways. As the story progresses, Exner recounts moments of intense personal reflection. She acknowledges the emotional burden of loving someone whose life was governed by external pressures, public expectation, and historical scrutiny. She reflects on the sacrifices required to maintain the delicate balance between personal loyalty and societal responsibility. These reflections are not just about secrecy or scandal. They are about the human cost of proximity to power, the ethical dilemmas faced by those who live in the orbit of influence, and the enduring impact on personal identity. Exner does not shy away from discussing the consequences of her revelations. She recounts how speaking out has brought both criticism and validation, demonstrating the courage required to challenge long-held narratives. The act of sharing her story is itself a testament to resilience, emphasizing that history is not only shaped by those in power, but also by those who bear witness to their private actions. By revealing these truths, Exner reframes the public understanding of JFK, highlighting the nuances of human behavior, vulnerability, and the intricate dynamics of love, loyalty, and secrecy. The narrative then moves to specific instances where Exner's discretion directly influenced political and personal outcomes. She shares how her awareness of sensitive information informed her actions, interactions, and decisions, often in subtle but meaningful ways. Each choice was weighed against potential repercussions, creating a constant tension that required vigilance, foresight, and emotional strength. These experiences underscore the unseen influence that individuals can wield in shaping events, even when they remain largely anonymous to the public eye. Exner also reflects on the intersection of gender, power, and societal expectation. As a woman intimately involved with a prominent political figure, she navigated an environment where her actions were scrutinized through multiple lenses. She discusses the unique challenges of maintaining agency, protecting personal integrity, and asserting her voice within a system that often marginalized or silenced women. These reflections add a critical dimension to her story, emphasizing not only the historical significance of her revelations, but also the broader implications regarding gender dynamics and the hidden struggles faced by women in positions adjacent to power. As we approach the climax of her story, Exner recounts the moments that had the most profound personal impact. She recalls the internal conflict of balancing affection, loyalty, and ethical responsibility, alongside the constant awareness of public perception and historical consequence. These experiences reveal the extraordinary complexity of human emotion when entangled with historical forces, illustrating that personal relationships, even at the highest levels, are rarely simple or unburdened by consequence. Exner's account concludes with reflections on legacy. She emphasizes the importance of truth, transparency, and historical accuracy, recognizing that sharing her experiences contributes to a more complete understanding of history. The revelations she provides are not intended to scandalize for the sake of sensationalism, but to illuminate the hidden dimensions of a story that has long fascinated the public. By providing her perspective, she invites audiences to reconsider assumptions, challenge narratives, and engage with history in a more nuanced, thoughtful manner. Finally, Exner leaves viewers with a compelling call to action. She encourages audiences to reflect on the hidden truths behind public figures, the human complexity often masked by fame, and the profound consequences of secrecy. This final message is paired with an invitation to stay engaged with the channel. To subscribe, leave a like, share thoughts in the comments, and support with super thanks if possible. By doing so, viewers not only participate in uncovering history, but also help the channel continue to produce in-depth, exclusive explorations of untold stories. In conclusion, Judith EXNERHid's revelations about JFK are more than historical gossip. They are a study of human complexity, the interplay between private and public life, and the ethical challenges faced by those who navigate the corridors of power. Her story demonstrates that understanding history requires listening to voices that have long been silent and considering perspectives that were previously hidden. For viewers, it is an invitation to look beyond headlines, question assumptions, and appreciate the intricate dynamics that shape both personal relationships and historical legacies. So, as you finish watching this incredible story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment sharing which part of EXNERHid's account surprised you most, and if possible, use super thanks to support more deep dives into hidden truths. Stay tuned for our next video, where we'll uncover even more shocking, untold stories from history that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Click on the next video, continue your journey of discovery, and be part of a community that uncovers the hidden truths history doesn't want you to see.